Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, and mostly welcome to this seminar where we will speak about the status of design in Finland and Sweden, and today and tomorrow. And this seminar will be held in English. The exhibition that will be opened later today by the Finnish Minister of Foreign Affairs, and this sub-seminar is a starting point for a 3-year commitment for the Finnish Institute in Stockholm to present Finnish design, architecture and fashion. Our intention is to show the audience here in Stockholm what is going on in these areas in Finland, but also to bring especially young Finnish and Swedish designers together and thus improve the cooperation between the two countries. But we will start this afternoon by listening to a couple of experts from Finland and Sweden speaking about the current situation for design in both countries and about the future perspective in an area that is constantly in a move. I will give the floor to our moderator, chief of the editorial staff at the Swedish design magazine Form, Salka Hallström Bornold, and she will also introduce our panelists. Once again, very welcome, and Salka, the floor is yours.
Thank you. Yes, I'm Salka Hallström Bornold, managing editor of Form, a Nordic architecture and design magazine. So I will be your moderator here today. And this is the magazine. It's probably the oldest design magazine on the planet. We celebrate 110 years today, and it's launched tomorrow at the fair. So we can fairly say that we are an authority in this world. So I would first like to welcome you all and welcome our fantastic expert panel. Please take the stage. Ann Vainola, Eva Kumlin, Sebastian, Jansson, and Susanna, Björklund. And I would first like to ask you to just present yourself briefly in a few lines.
Yeah, well, I'm pretty well branded here today, modestly branded, but I am the managing director of Svensk Form, which is also the oldest design organization in the world, and we publish the magazine Form. We have been around for 170 years this year. So, and I've been around for 10 years, so I'm maybe the oldest design director also at the same time.
Well, and my name is Anna Vainola, and I come from Design from Finland, which is the Finnish design promotion organization. We are the second oldest one in the world. We are having our 140th birthday this year, so we have the second oldest design promotion experience after the Svensk Form, of course. And my roots are in architecture, but I changed profession, and now I'm working as a communications manager, working with design.
Hello, I'm Sebastian Jansson. I run my design studio called Studio Sebastian Jansson, focusing on product design, interior objects, lighting, and so forth. And I'm also a founding partner of the Finnish designer network Beacon, and we're arranging this exhibition here at the Finnish Institute as well.
Hello everyone, I'm Susanna Björklund, and I would say that I'm a typical example of the state of design in Finland today. My first degree was in fashion design, and my second degree in visual culture and international design business management. And I'm a trend analyst nowadays and a journalist, and I also teach fashion students and other designers at Lahtis Institute of Design, and also Helsinki Design School, which is a private school. So doing a bit of everything, but everything is linked with design.
Yeah, so we have panel members here today that reflect various aspects of the design industry in Finland and Sweden here today. And we're here to talk about the current state of design in Sweden and Finland, to talk also about the future. But I would like to start with history and modernism, since this is something that we share, a heritage among our both nations. We are all children of modernism, and being in this industry, I believe this is something that you always need to deal with. You always need to deal with modernism somehow. How do you feel that you deal with this heritage today in both countries? And I would like to pose this question to Eva and Anne.
Well, I can just start by saying I was recently in France and listened to a French design professor, and he was very quick in analyzing the state of the 4 Nordic countries and the differences. And he was saying, like in Finland, where you take modernism and form very seriously and have it deeply rooted, and in Denmark also modernism, especially in the furniture industry. In Sweden we look for the trends all over, and we are very quick at adapting to new markets, although we have this very long history. And in Norway they don't have the icons, so they are more free. That's how he summarized it. But of course history is very much, long tradition and history is very much part of the Swedish and Nordic design genes, and this sort of practical and functional approach, or a democratic approach. But I would say that today I think that there is also very many different diversity that we should welcome and open up to. But of course the challenges we have today, we still have to also look back in history how it has been solved and looked upon over time. Modernism, I leave it for the moment, okay? I think I can't come back to it, but...
And Anne?
Well, I think in Finland everybody always, I mean, people who come from abroad, they always want to hear about the great icons of Finnish design like Alvar-Aalto, and we always try to tell them that there are so many other interesting young designers. Why aren't you interested in them? No, I'm just, where is Aalto's studio and where is his home? So I think that's a problem. In the Finnish design has an image which is based very strongly on history, and we very much try to change it, because we like to show that Finnish design is everything, almost anything else than just history. Of course we have the roots there, but I think the present day designers are trying to grow out from these roots so that they would find, of course the design basics are there, but they try to find something which is more up to date and more, people have changed, so the old ideas of designing of people's lives are not the same. So I think that's one of the points we try to publish in Finland. The times have been changing. But I think the characterization you mentioned earlier, Eva, was quite up to the point, because it really is that way. I think the Finns are the strictest in following the modernist rules, but we also have our eastern neighbor, Russia, and there comes some of these eastern influences which can be seen, I think, would make the most interesting present day design in Finland at the moment.
But you also have no, I should stop talking.
Also speaking about modernism, it was part of the social movement, and it played an important role in constructing the welfare society. But what would you say is, Eva and Anne again, what would you say, since you're working closly with the government and with authorities and other institutions and so forth, what would you say the view of design is today from this point of view?
In Sweden right now we have this big investigation. Government is doing a big investigation called Gestaltad livsmiljö on how we are addressing the question of a new policy for architecture and design in Sweden. And there was a big seminar the other day, and they were also talking a lot about, thank God, we are now beyond modernism. We are facing the new problems, the challenges of today, but yet we are using the tools of the modernism. And maybe it's something we want to believe in, but it's still there very strong. And there are so many also, let's say, new business companies that are still making new, let's say, new success internationally by using the sort of Scandinavian norm style again. So there is a revival of that also, I think, among them.
Yes, that's true, but I think in Finland there's both the Ministry of Culture and Education and the Ministry of Employment and the Economy, which take care of design, so to say. For instance, my employer, the background organization of the Finnish Society of Crafts and Design, gets basic funding from the Ministry of Employment and the Economy, which shows the place where design is considered to be in Finland. So it's part of business life. It's not just culture. And that's a place where we want it to be seen as a competitive edge in the world. And I think we have been quite successful in that, so that at least when compared to other countries, not necessarily to Sweden, but for instance to Middle Europe countries, we have been utilizing design much more purposefully. And for instance, we have now already the second design policy, which was published in 2013, sorry. And it was already the second in row. It's a national design policy, and it shows that the idea of the government is to have design as a very important way of boosting industries and to make the Finnish industries sort of a new Nokia by means of design. So I think that's something which is quite purposeful, and that's the official idea of how design should be seen.
And the official idea here is that it should not only be cultural ministry or economy ministry. It has been very much focused on entrepreneurship and business and export the past years, the last 5-10 years. But now this new policy wants it to be environmental ministry, social ministry, Ministry of Culture, Ministry of Economy. It has to be for the whole government, not just the classic one. And I am quite hopeful. It seems like it's going to happen something with this new policy. Otherwise, we were very late. All the Nordic countries have design policies, and we have not made one since 1998, which stayed in the sort of central offices.
Yeah, but I think that's also a way of seeing the importance of design, so that it covers all the fields of life. So why not all the ministries as well?
But if I may add, I have a sort of feeling that there's been for long this sort of culture of backing design in Sweden. I mean, some companies, fashion design companies or whatever, have got backers to help them to grow.
You mean the small ones or the big ones?
Yes, small ones. And we really haven't had that culture as such in Finland, unfortunately. So it's been a struggle for very small companies to try to survive. So, because we are very sort of engineering-minded country, and so these technological companies, which also utilize design, maybe they've been more.
But if you say innovation often enough, then you might get the right money anyway. Yes.
Yeah. True.
Not artistic quality.
Yeah. And as an outsider, you can get the impression that the general, I'm trying to put it down to the general public view on design and the importance for the people of design history. And from an outsider, it seems like the ordinary citizen in Finland has seemed to be more aware of national design history than we have here in Sweden. I'm thinking of a new book by Nokia, Out of the Blue, that shows design something that is very inherent to the Finnish soul, and still it's a vital part of that national identity. And I'm looking to you, Sebastian and Susanna. Would you say that this is true, that design is regarded as something deeply rooted in national Finnish identity? What are the possible advantages of this approach to design and the disadvantages? Is it true to begin with that you feel that this is rooted, that this is something that has roots in everyday life?
I think it's true, at least up to a point. I mean, I've been told so many times that tourists are really fascinated and they wonder how is it possible that we sell Iittala stuff in supermarkets, for instance, and that's just normal for Finns. So in that sense, yes, design has been. Also because it's been so functional. That's probably one reason, and long-lasting, and you know.
It's not for Sundays, it's for everyday use.
Yeah, true.
Yeah, I would agree. We have probably all of us from like all generations like grown up with all these different brands such as Mikko or Iittala and all these great functional products. So I would say that the general citizen is very aware of design in general and design brands, and in that sense also as a consumer maybe more aware. And then this combined also with the welfare state, probably from an external point of view as well, everything seems probably very designed and very functional, somehow like very idealistic, and I would say that this creates a very good basis also for further development, and recently we were talking more about like service design and strategic design in a broader sense, and I would say that it gives a very rich base also to implement design in other fields than these traditional industries that we're used to see design, but to actually use this kind of wide knowledge and scholarship to utilize this design thinking in other fields. And this is something we can see very strongly for the moment in Helsinki and in Finland, and especially in Helsinki, like from my point of view, and as far as I consider the city per se, for example, and also new companies are being very much aware of how to utilize design in all fields and levels, and this is something really unique and great.
Maybe the downside to it, which you also asked, is again this functionality, that we are so functional with that sometimes I feel that it's not enough if some design is really, really beautiful. Mm. It has to be, it's not a value enough. It has to be also very functional.
It kills the playfulness.
Yeah, and that's, yeah.
I think that's Swedish too. Yeah,
yes,
that's engineering society.
Yes, yeah. Because I think it's a great value also. If something is really beautiful, then it gives you pleasure and whatever.
But you're saying this strong connection that the Finnish citizen in general has to the design classics and design history, that this is like a foundation for further development. Is this what you're aiming at to say?
Yes, I consider that.
You see it as a possibility and not
exactly,
and not a disadvantage. No.
As a broader kind of awareness and knowledge and especially awareness, I think there's something in it, like that there's beyond this critical mass of design is not elitistic in Scandinavia, and this is big actually, because in Europe, in Latin Europe, Southern Europe, design is considered something exclusive, and it has been so for a long while. And maybe as the artistic expression has been more kind of also maybe open and vibrant, but this has maybe led to that what is considered design becomes exclusive, because it has also all to do with the industrial aspect and production of the items. But
I agree, because like you said, it's not. It was just when I think of all these people who've had all these design, china and furniture and Aalto and Marimekko and Iittala and all that in their homes. They're just middle-class people. It's not that it's something that they would be rich people having those things, but it's just everybody.
Vackrare vardagsvara.
Just exactly.
Yes, what do you have to say about that, Eva?
No, I think we also have to take it for granted, but we maybe take it so much for granted that we don't even have the awareness maybe of what is the quality in it and so on. And then of course, it's different if you talk about style or if you talk about how to use the design as a method or design thinking in different levels, of course. Maybe today there is not such a consistency in style, but maybe we have the heritage with us in addressing the design as an accessible thing for all people, or a right for everyone to live in a good design environment.
Yeah, but I'm also thinking that the average person in Sweden might not have such a quality-based.
No, they don't think Bruno Mattsson whenever they go out, like they might think it with the brands.
We might be more, you know.
IKEA and H&M.
Yeah, exactly. Yes, and we're here to talk about the strengths of Finnish and Swedish design and the challenges that are ahead of us. So what is the state of Finnish design today, and what directions do you see as taking Finnish design forward into the future? You have touched upon it a bit, but if you could evolve. And I direct this question to all of you, Anne, Sebastian, Susanna.
I think the Finnish design is looking for a new way at the moment. I think we don't want to stay with the old traditions, with the old masters. We want to find new ways of using design, and partly it's because of the situation is so different. There are ecological problems. There are design should be inclusive. There's also the idea of design thinking, as Sebastian said. We are trying to see how we can, or find how design, the idea of design could be used in solving complex problems, for instance, in the society. So that, for instance, in the public sector, it's not just designing a new hospital, but it's designing the way a patient is met and treated, and even more into medical processes and things like that. So I think that's something which we are now seeking and looking for.
Well, that's I think that's happening very strongly because of also out of necessity.
Yeah, that's true.
There are so many designers graduating every year, and there are no jobs for everyone. But at the same time, with that education, you can do anything. And they've actually used it there's been a couple of projects where they have, for instance, hired designers for the Ministry of Environment, and I think some other ministry as well, who've never hired designers ever before. But they have, because they wanted to introduce this sort of design thinking and way to solve problems, to have huge ideas, many of them, and then have very, very fast done little rapid prototyping methods, which they didn't have before.
We of course have a lot of that happening in Sweden too, and we all share these environmental, social, economic, health, migration, all these areas that are very acute in our society, where design and architecture can really help and to work with it. And of course there we have some help from our long tradition and non-hierarchic systems and accessibility, and to work transdisciplinary. That's easy in our countries in a way, but so we could really make a difference there. But if you look at the status when it comes to industry, for instance, who is successful and not, and what is the situation, of course, you can see an area like fashion. The fashion is doing quite well in Sweden at the moment. Craft, it's not economically successful, but you have a very interesting movement there. And there are, I mean, you can look at different areas if they are successful in export or if they are well known internationally, whereas there are other, or gaming industry and quite new areas where it has nothing to do with the modernistic language, if you look at that anymore.
But it should be clarified that now at least we three from Finland, when we are speaking about design thinking, we mean it as a way of solving a problem with a user-centered or user-oriented ideas, and starting from the end user. We are not speaking, when we are speaking about design thinking, we are not speaking about furniture or tableware or even services, but we are speaking about a way of dealing with problems. So that should be kept in mind. That's quite a new way of thinking and seeing design, and that's what we are now at least speaking about. I don't know what's the situation.
Yeah, I think it's the same. I think it's exactly the same. It's not.
And I have to say one thing that I'm really proud of is that, for instance, my fourth-year students in Lahtis, fashion designers, for them sustainability is not a trend or anything like that. It is a strong part of the design process nowadays, and that's really wonderful.
You have to.
You have to, but still
for
it's
many,
not,
even if you want to be competitive, you have to. Yeah.
That's a very interesting development of design that we have seen the past few years. Service design and abstract ways, systemic ways of using design methods. As I come from a journalist point of view, I find it extremely difficult to
explain it also to journalists when I am always asked
how do you get it out into the public? Do you have any thoughts about this? This recent developments, because the easiest way to get design out of the public is to show a chair.
The problem is that when I contact when a person of a media journalist comes to see me, for instance, and wants to know about Finnish design, he or she usually knows names like Auralto, Tapio Virkala, and he's interested in what are the new names.
It's the same they ask in Spain, yeah.
And I'm trying to tell them that we are actually not speaking about names, but we are speaking about methods nowadays and the way design is used, and so it's good for everybody, not just the buyer of a certain product. So that's very difficult.
That's a challenge, I think, to get out into the public.
Every year
how do you put a concept on a magazine cover?
Yeah.
How do you interview service design?
How do you illustrate it?
But I would actually like to state that that these processes and methods are the new kind of ideology of our age. Because like modernism, just like probably like my generation in a general matter, they don't really know and perceive what is modernism, because modernism was an ideology, but how we perceive it is too easily like from a style point of view, and it's not about that, So I don't think it's relevant to refer to the modernism because we don't consider it anymore as an ideology, because it doesn't exist. The same kind of values in society don't exist. We have new ones, and out from these norms will bounce up the ideology that we have around us that will be stated as something maybe later on or any day. But that's we are in a completely new era of ideology as well. And the industry has developed to something completely different from the modernism era. So, and the whole consuming has completely new means, and technological development and whatever regards like the digital era, etc. So we live in a completely different world, and we have completely different issues that we kind of reflect over and merge into concepts.
And we are only looking for the style, for this so-called style. which probably the afterworld will see better than we do.
And new kind of networking too is really important. How before you might have thought that these people are competing against each other, but instead of that, they start working together to all of them separately to gain something, to go forward. And that's a wonderful thing too.
Yeah, sometimes they work in collective groups and sometimes alone and sometimes they change roles. And when we have this young Swedish design exhibition that will open at the fair tomorrow, every year when you get in these 500-600 entries from all of the schools, and it's a very good time to see what goes on right now in the minds of the young designers. And of course, in the last few years, you've seen a very strong social engagement and the environmental engagement. And this year, it was what has happened within textile and fashion, and what has happened there that was really strong. So that's interesting to see, because there was a lot of effort the last few years in the experiments and technology together with textile and materials. So when you have invested, you can see maybe 5-10 years after the result of it. So it's really interesting.
But then we got some extremely interesting entries that weren't, you know,
visual.
No, that weren't visual, that were abstract, and there was no way of presenting them. So that's what I think might be a challenge ahead.
Salka was the chairman of the jury of the Young Swedish Award. So.
Anyway. Since we're gathered here today as two nations, experts from Finland and Sweden, I'd like to take the opportunity to look back again. Long ago, when Scandinavian brands were marketed together, much like we have like the Nordic Pavilion in the Venice Biennale. And here during the Stockholm Design Week, we also see, for example, the initiative We Live Here, where the Finnish and Icelandic design organizations share an exhibition space. A very exciting project. And also I've heard from retailers like Scandium working with selling Scandinavian design abroad, that to the international customer it doesn't matter if the designer is Finnish or Norwegian, or it's all Scandinavian to them still. So that's a historical heritage that lives on. So is there a point in this still? Would it be a way forward to continue to promote design as a region with joint forces, especially now when economics are fluctuating, so to speak? Do you have any thoughts about this?
Absolutely. I think we are a great fan of that idea, at least through Beacon. And we have, like, since the beginning, like, already approached Eva Kumlin and Svensk Form, and also, of course, Design Forum Finland. And I think it's a great idea to do things together, especially like this also We Live Here project, and like to at least do things together. I think that's a great way to do things, and in that way we can learn to network better, and through these like more fluently also and organically than do things spontaneously after that. So I think all these kind of initiatives is very positive, and especially going into larger like export markets. If you have like a glance over Asia, for example, I would say that that's a great idea, that we would join forces to actually do larger cooperative initiatives.
I think so too. I think we have been very bad at it for a few years in a way, in a more official way, because we have been so eager to go out and be our nations abroad, because that's what our governments maybe have wanted us to do, nation branding, and then that has put us a little bit apart. But I think we could really do much more together. There were some Nordic design network. When I started Svensk Form, there were even statutes, and you should meet twice a year, but it was too formalized for today's world. It's more the spontaneous networking thing. And I also think that if we do things abroad, we should really be using the word Nordic much more than Scandinavian, because if you do the Scandinavian, then you are still hooking it up on an idea of something else, because the idea of Scandinavian design all over the world is still prevailing, of the idea of the clean, simple lines. And
we will be having here in the Institute on Thursday, there will be a meeting of Scandinavian and Baltic design organizations. So that's one of the ways to getting to know each other and to hear
Everyone
what's
is coming.
happening. Everybody's coming. Yeah. From the
Fantastic.
Baltic states and all the Scandinavian countries.
Thanks to you. Thanks to Finland. You've got it all together.
Yes,
The Nordic
Christina
meeting.
has something there.
Yeah.
She wrote all the letters.
Yeah.
So that's, and thanks to you, because this is such a place that everybody comes here.
Yeah.
So we have two winning factors that combine.
So how do you feel, as obviously you all have been working on pan-Nordic platforms, both formal and informal. Do you feel, is this a natural way of working, and why?
I think it's
Teaming
quite
together
natural,
over the...
because there are so many historical and even political connections between different states like Sweden and Norway, and parts of Sweden and Denmark, and Finland and Sweden, and even Sweden and parts of Estonia. So I think the connections have been so long. Connections are so old and so established that maybe with the Baltic countries it needs some refreshing, but anyhow they exist. So I think it's quite natural. We had this exhibition in the early 2000s called the Scandinavian Design Beyond the Myth, which was touring around Europe.
Yeah. It's a very good book, by the way. Yeah.
So I think that was almost the last one.
We tried to do something for the World Expo in Shanghai together, but we couldn't raise money. We have tried so many things, but we couldn't raise money. So
I think our time is up now, and I trust that this discussion is going to continue long after this we have this meeting. Is there any questions from the public so far? Yes.
Yeah, I have a question, because you're also talking about the economic go down, but this was a major cause because a lot of industry, the productions, moved to Asia. Do you have any idea how to deal with that? Will it be time to bring all this, some of the industry back?
Actually, if you, of course, it's hard to talk about design as a general, but if you look at different sectors, so when it comes to Swedish furniture industry, it's quite interesting that despite the crisis in Europe and everyone else has gone down, so the production in Sweden has increased as the only country in Europe, which is sort of interesting news and good news. So some things are happening, but I mean, some processes are better done somewhere else. It's not locally near produced is not the answer to every production. But
I've also heard that in materials, in fabrics, at Heim Textile Fair, for instance, that actually there is a shift of higher market companies starting the production back in Europe again.
And that is good.
Yeah,
I think it's a
Because
question of quality.
if you withdraw all the industry, there's no people who have money to buy. Because the middle class is important. Take a look in the history of America. They grow because of the middle class, and they are from worker class. You know?
Anybody else?
If I may advertise the joint project of Finnish, Swedish and Icelandic design centers is just around the corner. The address is Regeringsgatan 86, and the exhibition is called We Live Here. It's an apartment which is
70 designers.
70 designers, mainly from Iceland and Finland, and a couple of Swedish designers. It's a very...
We are the godmother.
You are the godmother.
And it's a super nice, cozy environment.
Yeah, it's really nice.
Go and see it. It's open to the public.
Yeah.
You will find the information.
So, thank you very much. Our fantastic panel. Big
Fantastic,
applause.
yes.
Ann, Eva, Sebastian, Susanna. Thank you.
Thank you.
And thank you, Salka. You are kindly invited to participate in the opening of the exhibition. In fact, there is 2 exhibitions, Harry Koskinen and Beacon. We will start at 5 o'clock, and the Minister of Foreign Affairs of Finland will join us about 10 minutes past 6 for the official opening. So, welcome to stay here.